Am I happy? No. Am I upset? Yes, I am. I'm devastated right now. It's right for me because I honestly, at this point today, have no idea what I'm going to be doing with the rest of my life. He was so quick-witted and very vulnerable. I just thought he was the funniest, sweetest guy I'd ever met.
Ozzy, 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 Ozzy.
The Black Sabbath lead singer Ozzy Osbourne has died.
For decades, he was chaos incarnate, the bat-biting, stage-snarling prince of darkness. But when Ozzy Osbourne died, it wasn't in a blaze of rock and roll glory. It was in silence, controlled, curated, private. And that's what shook people most, because behind the headlines and heartfelt tributes, there was something else happening, something no one outside the family was meant to see. Sharon Osbourne didn't just lose a husband. She managed a legacy, a death, a narrative. And she did it with the same iron grip that once kept Ozzy alive through addiction, betrayal, and collapsed now. At 72, Ozzy Osbourne's wife Sharon finally breaks silence about his tragic death. And what she revealed wasn't just a goodbye, it was a plan, a structure, a controlled demolition of one of rock's most untamed lives. From secret end-of-life protocols, to whispered pacts about assisted death, to legal maneuvers that kept even their children in fixed roles. This wasn't just a funeral. It was a final performance. And it turns out, Ozzy didn't just die. He exited exactly the way he wanted, on his own terms, with Sharon writing the final chapter. When the news broke on July 22nd, fans around the world were blindsided. Ozzy Osbourne, gone. The headlines read, "Peaceful passing, family by his side, and death due to Parkinson's complications." But what they didn't say? This was no surprise to those closest to him, because Sharon Osbourne had been planning this moment for months. Ozzy didn't die in a hospital bed surrounded by frantic doctors. He died at home by design. Sharon had transformed their Buckinghamshire estate into a full-scale private care facility long before the cameras ever caught on. We're talking ICU-level treatment inside their own walls. 3 medical teams operating on rotating shifts, one for neurological support, one for motor rehab, one strictly for end-of-life palliative care. All of them hand-picked. All of them bound by airtight NDAs. This wasn't some last-minute rush to provide comfort. This was a system, a machine, a blueprint crafted by Sharon to keep every detail of Ozzy's decline out of the public eye. Everything from medication schedules to dietary logs was encrypted, recorded, and reviewed by a private advisory board. All under Sharon's watch. Even the legal framework was sealed. Power of attorney? Sharon had it locked down years ago. She didn't need approval. She was the approval. So when Ozzy's condition took its final turn, everything was kept private. Just the quiet activation of a plan already in motion. By the time the world found out he was gone, he had already been dead for hours, maybe longer. The statement came only when Sharon signed off. Not before in that calm, curated obituary. He passed peacefully at home with family present. It wasn't a poetic phrase. It was the product of precision. 3 days before the world knew, the Osbourne family knew. And it started with a call, one final connection. Ozzy couldn't speak. Parkinson's had already taken that. But his mind? Still sharp, still present, still aware enough to say goodbye without saying a word. Under Sharon's direction, a final video call was arranged, scheduled, not spontaneous, medically approved, carefully timed to avoid overexertion. On one side of the screen, Jack Kelly, and Amy on the other, the man they'd grown up watching electrify stadiums, now lying silent but fully conscious in a darkened room. He looked at each of them in turn. His eyes did the talking, lingering, focused, deliberate. Not frantic, not fearful, just final. Jack later said, There was nothing ambiguous about the moment. We all knew what it meant. And here's what makes that moment even more striking. Sharon was the only one allowed to be physically present in the room, while no one else was allowed. It wasn't an accident. It was a decision. A decision Ozzy made when he could still sign his name. One last request, honored to the letter. And when the moment came, when that last breath passed and the room fell silent, everything went quiet. Just peace. And Sharon, quietly holding the line between life and legacy, it wasn't a rock star send-off. It was a curtain closing in perfect silence. For years, fans dismissed it as dark humor, just Sharon being Sharon. But after Ozzy's death, one old quote came roaring back like a ghost in the room. Back in 2007, Sharon Osbourne sat down for a TV interview and casually dropped a bomb. She spoke about her father's slow decline from Alzheimer's and how watching him suffer made her and Ozzy confront the unthinkable. They didn't want to go out like that. And then she said it flatly, without hesitation. If Ozzy or I ever got Alzheimer's, that's it. We'd be off. She named names. She referenced Dignitas, the Swiss organization that offers assisted death under strict medical conditions. At the time, people brushed it off as hypothetical, a throwaway, lying, but it was never really forgotten. Fast forward to 2025. Ozzy's Parkinson's had advanced. He was lucid, but voiceless, conscious, but immobile. And then, he was gone. Quietly, privately, just gone. That's when the rumors ignited again. Clips of Sharon's old interviews resurfaced. Headlines recycled her quotes. And then came the October 2023 episode of the Osbournes podcast, where Jack, half-jokingly, asked if the plan to fly to Switzerland was still on. Sharon didn't blink. "Do you think we're going to suffer?" she said. And when Jack nervously replied, "Isn't life already suffering?" her answer was stone cold. Mental suffering is enough pain without physical. So if you've got both, see ya. The internet exploded. Was she serious? Was this just their brand of macabre humor? Or something more? Kelly Osbourne tried to put the fire out. 11 days before Ozzy's death, she posted to Instagram, calling the old death pact something my mom said for attention one time. But the tone didn't match the moment. And more importantly, it wasn't exactly true. Because while Sharon's words may have sounded flippant in public, her actions in private were anything but careless. She held total medical authority. She controlled every legal document, every treatment protocol, every final directive. And she was the only one in the room when he died. No one's confirmed that assisted death occurred. But no one's denied it either. What's left is a shadow, a quiet, deliberate death. And a woman who always said she'd never let the man she loved suffer, not even if it meant controversy. To the outside world, it looked like devotion. Sharon Osbourne, the loyal wife, the tireless caregiver, the woman who stood by Ozzy through addiction, chaos, and collapse. But behind closed doors, it was something far more calculated. Sharon didn't just care for Ozzy. She controlled every single element of his environment. And it wasn't born out of fear. It was built out of strategy. By the time Ozzy's health began to spiral, Sharon had already converted their estate into something resembling a high-security compound with medical privileges. Not a nurse's room, not a care suite, a full-on, multi-layered system. Inside that house, there were 3 rotating medical teams, each operating like elite units. One focused on neurological stability, one on motor function therapy, and the third, palliative care, always on standby, always silent. No one got through the door without clearance. Even close friends of the family had to communicate through intermediaries or legal counsel. Every shift was logged, every routine encrypted and reviewed weekly. Sharon didn't just build a fortress. She built a command center, and the law was on her side. Power of attorney? She secured it years before Parkinson's ever became public. That meant no one could override her choices, not even the kids. She was the medical, financial, and legal gatekeeper of Ozzy Osbourne. The home itself had been retrofitted, air filtration, emergency generators, soundproofed rooms, advanced biometric monitoring. It wasn't a mansion. It was a medically equipped sanctuary disguised as a celebrity estate. Even Ozzy's appearances were subject to approval. If he couldn't maintain facial control, if his tremors were too visible, or if his speech declined, past a certain threshold, he would be restrained from all public outings. No performances. Not unless Sharon cleared it. She wasn't just shielding him from the public. She was shielding the legacy. Everything was structured, documented, and protected. From his meals, to his medicine, to his music rights. And when the time came, that same fortress ensured no paparazzi got close. Everything was kept private, just silence. Exactly the way she built it. Before Sharon Osbourne could construct the airtight fortress that shielded Ozzy in his final years, she had to rebuild something far more fragile: trust. And the truth is, it almost didn't happen in 2016. Everything broke. The tabloids exploded. With a story that cut deeper than any scandal in the Osbourne legacy, Ozzy had been cheating. And not just rumors. Concrete, undeniable facts. An ongoing affair with a celebrity hairstylist exposed down to the messages and dates. For Sharon, it wasn't just betrayal, it was public humiliation. After decades of defending Ozzy from critics, managing his addictions, and literally keeping him alive, she was blindsided. And this time, she didn't defend him. She left. She canceled all of his appearances. She stripped him of upcoming performances. And for the first time in their marriage, she called their union exactly what it was in that moment: broken. But here's where it gets even more intense. This wasn't just a marital spat. It triggered a full legal and logistical overhaul of their relationship. Behind the scenes, Sharon didn't just demand accountability. She drafted new terms, boundaries, agreements, written documents. Ozzy underwent treatment, not just for the affair, but for what the family referred to as compulsive sexual behavior. Many saw that as a sanitized label. But Sharon wasn't trying to diagnose him. She was trying to reprogram him. Legal files were created outlining new behavioral expectations. Financial monitoring was introduced. Ozzy could no longer appear publicly without Sharon's approval. Any interviews, tours, or travel had to be cleared in advance. These weren't suggestions. They were terms, like a contract. Even the children were pulled into the structure. Jack began managing privacy and legal compliance. Kelly took over social, media narratives, and family communications. Amy, always the quietest, remained behind the curtain, only involved when absolutely necessary. Sharon didn't want flowers or apologies. She wanted structure. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She demanded order. The marriage wasn't healed. It was rebuilt under her rules. And that, more than anything, laid the groundwork for what came next. Because after this collapse, Sharon didn't just become a caregiver. She became the commander of every detail in Ozzy's life. And Ozzy, once wild, erratic, uncontrollable, agreed to it. Because by then, he knew chaos had nearly destroyed everything. Now, structure would be the only thing that kept it all standing. Ozzy Osbourne built his legacy on chaos. But in the final decade of his life, chaos had an expiration date, and Sharon Osbourne stamped it out. Piece by piece, after the affair, everything changed. The freedom, the unpredictability, the spontaneity, gone. What replaced it was precision. Under Sharon's authority, Ozzy's life became a system. Every moment, every move was scheduled, reviewed, and signed off in advance. Even time with his own children was filtered through logistics. Jack became the legal and digital overseer, managing everything from asset protection to intellectual property rights. Kelly became the family spokesperson, vetting interviews and crafting narratives that kept Ozzy's image sharp but controlled. Amy, by choice, remained in the shadows, holding on to the most personal parts of Ozzy's legacy. The unreleased songs, the journals, the handwritten lyrics. Inside the home, Ozzy's routine became almost militarized. Everything was done to make life simple for him. Even the music, the one thing Ozzy always claimed as his escape, was handled with restraint. Studio sessions were private, stripped down, and recorded only for family use. These weren't hits for charts. They were echoes of a man preparing to leave something behind. And through it all, Ozzy didn't rebel. He didn't push back. He surrendered because he knew his body was betraying him. The tremors, the stiffness, the stuttered speech. The man who once electrified crowds with a scream was now whispering his thoughts through blinking eyes and silent nods. And in that silence, he chose trust over freedom, trust in the woman who once forgave the unforgivable, trust in the structure she built, trust that when the end came, she would carry him through it on his terms. And maybe that's the biggest twist of all. The man who once thrived on madness ended up placing his life and his death in the hands of someone who turned madness into management. Ozzy Osbourne's death marked the end of a legendary life. But what came next wasn't grief, it was activation. Because Ozzy didn't just leave behind memories. He left a map, a legal, airtight roadmap for everything he built. And at the center of it all was Sharon. This wasn't a typical will split between heirs. Ozzy didn't divide his estate like a sentimental father. He divided it like a CEO, by function, by skill set, by trust. Jack Osbourne, methodical and tech-savvy, was handed all digital assets, unreleased concert footage, old backups, production files, and IPs that had never seen the light of day. Kelly, battle-tested in the media spotlight, was given control of public messaging. Press releases, interviews, social narratives. She became the family's official voice. Amy, always the ghost in the background, was entrusted with the most delicate part, Ozzy's personal archive. Demos, handwritten lyrics, unreleased songs. He never meant for the public. The kind of material you only give to someone who won't exploit it. But Sharon? Sharon got everything else. The core, the crown, the licensing, the branding, the catalog, the image of Ozzy Osbourne. She was given full, uncontested authority over every decision about his name, face, voice, or music. All decisions were to be made by her. And in true Sharon fashion, she didn't hesitate to say no. Immediately after Ozzy's death, offers poured in. Record labels, streaming platforms, foundations, tribute concert producers. Everyone wanted a piece of the legacy. But Sharon shut it down. All of it in a postscript filed with the family's legal team. She wrote, "No one will repackage this man's life for profit, not while I'm alive." Because to Sharon, this wasn't just about business. It was about purity. Ozzy's legacy wasn't a brand. It was a life. Messy, wild, hard-earned. And no posthumous cash grab would distort that in giving her full control. Ozzy didn't just trust Sharon to protect his name. He gave her the last word, the final performance rights, the only approval that mattered. And then, just when the industry expected her to step forward and take the spotlight, she stepped away without a trace, just a signature confirming every final wish had been fulfilled. And then, silenced because in the end, Sharon didn't need the spotlight. She had already carried out Ozzy's last gift, not just control, but peace. For decades, Sharon Osbourne ran the Osbourne empire like a war room. Every album, every tour, every scandal and comeback, she was the engine behind it all. Her fingerprints were on every decision Ozzy ever made in the spotlight. But after Ozzy's final breath, something unexpected happened. She let it all go, quietly, legally, permanently, without any fanfare. Sharon simply filed a final document. A single signature that said, in essence, "My work here is done." After years of holding power of attorney, managing every medical treatment, executing every branding contract, and denying every outsider's attempt to cash in on Ozzy's legacy, she stepped down not because she couldn't handle more, but because she knew she'd done everything she promised. There was no televised memorial. Instead, there was silence. There was privacy. There was closure to those closest to her. It wasn't just an administrative move. It was seismic. Sharon didn't just walk away from the brand. She walked away from the role that had defined her entire adult life. She had been Ozzy's protector, his manager, his lifeline. And now, for the first time in over 4 decades, she was just Sharon away from all the noise. Because that's what Ozzy asked for. And Sharon, ever the enforcer, ever the strategist, made sure that even in death, the chaos stopped exactly where he wanted it to. She didn't grieve publicly. She didn't capitalize privately. She simply exited the stage with the same precision she'd used to run it. And in doing so, she gave Ozzy a gift few legends ever receive. A legacy left untouched. A goodbye left unbranded. A silence that spoke louder than any encore ever could. As the world mourned the death of a rock legend, a darker question quietly crept through the cracks. Was this really the way Ozzy wanted to go? Or the way Sharon decided he would? Because while the Osbourne family's official story is airtight, the silence surrounding Ozzy's final days left something chilling in its wake. No medical records were made public. No independent physician ever gave a statement. And the timeline between his final decline and the announcement of his death? Too clean, too quiet, too controlled to fans. It didn't feel natural. It felt engineered, and the rumors haven't. Stopped. Was Ozzy's death the product of a gentle, well-managed decline, or a decision made behind closed doors, carried out under the protection of advanced directives and airtight legal control? We know Sharon had the authority. We know she believed in ending suffering before it became unbearable. We know Ozzy had lost the ability to speak, move, or live independently for months before his death. And we know she was the only one in the room when it happened. But what we don't know, what we may never know, is whether that final moment came naturally or was chosen. And that question? It lingers. It's in every silent denial, every missing record, every no comment from the inner circle. Sharon has never admitted to crossing any lines. But she's also never explained exactly what happened in that room. And maybe she doesn't have to. Because in the end, Ozzy trusted her with everything. His life, his career, his goodbye. Whether she ended it or merely protected it, one thing is clear. Sharon Osbourne was always in control. From the chaos of the early years to the haunting quiet of his final breath, she didn't just love Ozzy. She managed him right to the very end. And when the time came, she made sure the exit was clean, silent, and exactly on her terms. Ozzy Osbourne lived loud. He made headlines, started riots, and turned chaos into a career. But in the end, he left in total silence. Just a single room, a final breath, and one woman who carried out his last wishes down to the second. Sharon Osbourne didn't just say goodbye. She engineered it. She transformed a life that had once been uncontainable into a legacy that would never be touched by scandal, leaks, or exploitation. And then she walked away, quietly. That's not how legends usually go out. But Ozzy Osbourne was never usual. And neither was the woman who stood beside him until the very end. But one question still lingers. Did Sharon protect Ozzy, or did she control him to the very last second? Was this his peaceful end, or the final performance she directed? That's the question we're leaving you with. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the rumors about the Death Pact? Was this the most dignified ending a rock legend could ask for, or something darker, hidden behind contracts and control? We're reading all of it. And if you want more untold stories, more behind-the-scenes truth, and more moments the media won't touch, like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because sometimes the biggest legends don't go out screaming. They go out silent, exactly how they planned it.